Stoic wisdom on dealing with failure. A journey of growth and resilience. In the quiet corners of history, where great minds sought to understand the human condition, the Stoics presented a profound approach to the trials of life. They viewed failure not as an obstacle to success, but as an essential element of the human experience, one that could lead to growth, wisdom, and strength. Their teachings, grounded in practical philosophy, remain as relevant today as they were in ancient times. The Stoic view of failure. For the Stoics, failure was not an anomaly to be avoided at all costs. It was instead a natural part of life's journey. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This emphasis on reaction, on the choices we make in response to the challenges life throws at us, encapsulates the Stoic attitude toward failure. To them, failure was simply a momentary event, not an identity or a permanent state. The Stoics believed in focusing on what they could control, and nothing was more within their control than their thoughts, actions, and reactions. Failure, therefore, could only affect a person if they allowed it to. If they chose to view failure as a setback, rather than an opportunity for learning, then they would suffer unnecessarily. But if they chose to view failure as a lesson, a chance to refine their character and understanding, then it could lead to profound growth. One Stoic philosopher, Lucius, known for his wisdom and fortitude, often recited the words of his mentor, Marcus. Marcus had taught him, "A man who has not learned to fail has not truly learned to live." These words shaped Lucius's understanding of failure. It was not something to be feared, but embraced as part of the learning process. Failure could be uncomfortable, yes, but it was always an opportunity to refine one's understanding and approach to life. The Stoic approach to overcoming failure. The Stoic mindset involves more than simply accepting failure. It requires an active, deliberate response. Stoics teach that there are specific ways to approach failure that transform it from a negative event into an opportunity for growth. By focusing on what we can control, adjusting our reactions, and finding meaning in our struggles, we can learn to thrive in the face of adversity. 1. Accept what you cannot control. The first step in dealing with failure, according to Stoicism, is to recognize what is beyond your control. We often think that we can control every aspect of our lives, but the Stoics teach that there is much that is outside our influence. The actions of others, the passage of time, and even certain external events are beyond our reach. A failure that arises from these external factors should be acknowledged for what it is, an inevitable part of life. Take the case of a young man named Aurelius. He had spent years preparing for an important exam that would determine his future career. He had studied diligently, sacrificed time with friends, and committed his energy to mastering the material. When the day of the exam arrived, however, a power outage disrupted the test, causing him to fail despite his best efforts. Aurelius could not change the situation. The power outage was outside his control. His failure was a direct result of something unpredictable and unavoidable. Instead of succumbing to despair, Aurelius embraced the Stoic idea that there was no need to be upset by things beyond his control. The failure was painful, but it was not an indication of his worth or abilities. By accepting the external event as it was, Aurelius freed himself from the burden of unnecessary suffering. This acceptance allowed him to focus his energy on the things he could control: his mindset, his response to failure, and his plans for the future. 2. Control your reactions. The next step in the Stoic approach to failure is learning to control your reactions. It is easy to feel anger, frustration, or even shame when we fail, but Stoicism teaches that these emotions are not helpful. They often cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing the lessons that failure can offer. Instead of reacting impulsively to failure, the Stoics advise us to pause, reflect, and choose a measured response. Let's return to the story of Aurelius. After the exam incident, Aurelius felt a surge of frustration. He wanted to lash out at the world, but instead he remembered his mentor's words. "Emotions are not facts. They are mere responses to situations. You choose whether they govern you." Aurelius took a deep breath and paused. In that moment, he consciously chose not to let his anger dictate his actions. Instead, he wrote in his journal, reflecting on what had happened and how he could better prepare for future exams. The Stoics believed that by practicing emotional regulation, we could not only make better decisions, but also learn to maintain our inner peace regardless of external circumstances. Aurelius's decision to control his reactions allowed him to move forward with renewed clarity and purpose. 3. Identify the lessons in failure. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoic philosophy is its focus on self-improvement through reflection. When we fail, the natural reaction is often to avoid thinking about the failure, to sweep it under the rug. But the Stoics taught that every failure contains valuable lessons, and it is only by reflecting on these lessons that we can grow. In the case of Aurelius, he spent time analyzing his failure. He realized that although the power outage was out of his control, there were other areas he could improve. For one, he could have built more resilience into his study routine by preparing for unexpected disruptions. Additionally, he could learn how to better manage stress during important moments. These lessons weren't just theoretical, they were practical and actionable, helping Aurelius build a stronger foundation for future challenges. This process of reflecting on failure is an essential part of the Stoic approach to life. The philosopher Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, would often say, "Life is a journey, not a destination." This journey requires us to be flexible, to adapt, and to learn from every experience. Failure, then, is not a stop on this journey. It is simply a stepping stone that can guide us toward wisdom and maturity. Turning failure into growth. Once we have accepted failure, controlled our reactions, and identified the lessons, the next step is to turn this experience into growth. For the Stoic, failure is not something to be defeated, but something to be used as a catalyst for change. 1. Reframe the situation. One of the most powerful tools in Stoic philosophy is reframing. This is the practice of changing the way we view a situation to make it more constructive. Rather than focusing on the negative aspects of failure, the Stoics encouraged us to focus on the positive, the lessons learned, the growth achieved, and the potential for future success. Aurelius could have viewed his failure as a sign of his inadequacy, but he reframed the situation. Instead of seeing the power outage as a crushing blow, he saw it as an opportunity to develop greater resilience. He recognized that he had learned to deal with stress and disappointment more healthily, and that these skills would serve him well in the future. 2. Take action. Reframing failure is not enough in itself. It must be followed by action. The Stoics believed that knowledge without action is meaningless. Once Aurelius understood the lessons from his failure, he took concrete steps to improve his situation. He enrolled in a time management course to better organize his study schedule, practiced mindfulness techniques to reduce stress, and developed a more adaptive approach to life's uncertainties. The key, according to the Stoics, is not to remain stagnant after a failure, but to use it as a springboard for positive change. By taking action, we actively engage in our growth and transformation. 3. Remember your progress. It is easy to get caught up in the idea that failure defines us, but the Stoics emphasize the importance of recognizing progress. Aurelius, in his reflections, realized that he had made significant strides in his personal growth. He had learned to handle adversity with grace and had developed greater emotional resilience. These were accomplishments that no failure could take away. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Often, our perception of failure is far worse than the reality. By reminding ourselves of how far we've come and celebrating our progress, we can maintain a positive mindset and keep moving forward. Embracing the journey of growth. The Stoics believe that growth and success are not destinations, but lifelong journeys. Life, they taught, is full of challenges, setbacks, and failures, but it is also full of opportunities for growth, wisdom, and improvement. Failure is not the end of the road. It is simply part of the path that leads to greater strength and understanding. In the end, the Stoic view of failure is not one of resignation or defeat. It is a view of resilience, empowerment, and transformation. By accepting what we cannot control, focusing on what we can, and learning from every failure, we can continue on our journey of growth, ever forward, ever striving for a better version of ourselves. Aurelius' story did not end with his failure. It was only one chapter in a much larger narrative. And as he continued his journey, guided by Stoic wisdom, he found that failure was not an enemy, but a trusted ally. One that, in its own way, helped him to become the person he was always meant to be.